What is prepping and why are we doing it in the UK? What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and we are talking about an original subject that we've done on the channel before, but it's a good time to re-release that in a way and just talk about what prepping is, why we should do it, why we are doing it in the UK. So prepping generally as a movement has come from overseas, from our American cousins in the United States. And if you search just the term prepping on YouTube or any social media platform, generally a lot of the stuff you're going to get back is doomsday preppers from United States, gun stockpiling, bunkers, etc. The real extreme side of it, the sensationalism behind prepping. So is that what we're doing in the UK? Are we sitting on stockpiles of beans and bullets? No, it's not quite the same over here. Obviously, we have high restrictions with certain things we can stock. So what are we doing? And what's prepping in general? Well, I would argue to most people who are non-preppers that they are preppers. And quickly they'll come back at me saying, no, they're not, and all this. But they have a box with medicines, plasters, and first aid at home. They potentially have fire extinguishers. They potentially have emergency flat tire kits or snow kits in their car. All of these are preparing for something that is yet to happen, may never happen. Now, being a prepper is essentially exactly the same thing as that and what you're doing there, but we're ensuring not just individual small things or a bit of first aid, but trying to maintain and ensure a way of life if anything terrible does happen. We've all lived, who's watching this video now and can understand it, have lived through a time that has been seen supermarkets with limited stock, limited entry, limited restricted movement around the country, confined to our homes. And these implementations happened almost overnight. And it just changed a lot of people's thinking on that front. However, a lot of people did just go straight back to, oh, that's fine, everything's open again, everything's back to normal, don't have to worry about it anymore.
I lied.
But prepping is taking note of that. And it's more the way of life. When we talk about the way of life, we talk about the basic essentials and the cause around prepping, which is water, food, warmth, shelter. There's all sorts of tiers and aspects and levels to prepping, but that's the very basics. What do you need to stay alive? And maybe not just stay alive, but stay alive in a bit of comfort, without struggling if the rest of the nation is. We've seen the price of food start to go through the roof in a lot of places, especially on certain products. Some preppers are still using that product, but they paid for it 3 or 4 years ago. So they're still using it at a price that was dictated 4 years ago. Yes, they'll have to restock eventually, but you can restock in bulk and save a bit of money there as well. There's all sorts of reasons to prep. Everyone's prep journey is an individual personal journey. Many people, when I've interviewed them on the podcast, have had an incident that's happened and it's thrown them into a situation that they really didn't like. And their prepping journey started by thinking, I don't want to be in that situation again. That could have been a bad storm. That could have been stuck in the house during lockdown. That could be broken down on a motorway or stuck in traffic for hours and hours upon end. Potentially overnight in some cases. And not wanting to be in that situation, not want to struggle in them situations again, is a really good motivator. Now, it's a much better method to preempt these items. Don't prepare your house for a flood because you live next to a river after the flood's already happened, because you didn't think it might happen. You need to be preparing and looking at the risks around you now. A lot of preppers are naturally risk assessors. So we look at our immediate area, we look at the immediate threats, we look into mainstream media and alternative media at what could potentially threaten our way of life. And this can go to that level of extreme, or as we like to call it, Teotihuacan, which is the end of the world as we know it. That doesn't mean the world's end, like asteroids hit and it's a complete global killer. It's the as we know it section. So an economic collapse could fall into that. World War III happening across Europe, not necessarily on our doorstep, but happening across Europe with the knock-on effect of logistics and supply chains, could be a Teotihuacan situation. SHTF is another phrase you'll hear bandied around, and that means shit hits the fan, which we have in more minor scales throughout our everyday life. Losing your job, for example, could be an SHTF situation for you. So it's a very personal journey, it's a very personal risk assessment, and it's mitigating that risk within reason. You might not want to go out and dig a giant nuclear bunker in your back garden and fill it with enough stock for 2 years, because, let's be fair, budgets might not allow it. But giving yourself that bit of grace, that bit of leeway, having 30 days worth of food, which may sound a lot to some people, but it's actually not. When you look at canned food, freeze-dried food, pastas and rices, and the staples that we use of that kind of prepping pantry, it's not all that much. Most of our parents and our grandparents would have stocked that amount of food anyway, would have had a food pantry. It's only recent times that we've become completely blind to this, the times where we can now click one click and have food delivered to our doorstep within 20 minutes. And we've become so accustomed to that that the what ifs have just dropped out.
That's what she said.
Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a sales pitch. It's not all about stuff. It's great to have the extra stuff in. Whatever extra food you can store is a good start. Spend an extra £10 on the shop that you wouldn't have usually spent. That is a great start. And if you do that over a few weeks or a few months, it will soon build up into that 30-day supply before you've even known it. But it's less about the stuff and it's more about an attitude, mental resilience. So surviving situations, not breaking down, going, oh, woe is me, thinking, planning of what you can do. Putting a plan together, having a think of what could happen and then playing that out in your mind and putting a plan together is one of the easiest and free exercises you could potentially do as a prepper. And the more of these plans you have in place, hopefully documented so a family member can see them if you're not available, then the better chances you're giving yourself of any survival in any kind of situation, be that minor, be that major. There's multiple strategies with prepping as well. You'll get people that are bug in no matter what. You know, you'll set fire to the house and they'll still want to stay there. But you'll get the bug in people who is all more about stuff, stacking up that pantry and stuff like this. You'll get the bug out people. Now the bug out people think they're going to disappear out to their home or go to a bug out location with a backpack full of stuff and all their training and survive that way. And many of them probably could. A lot of them haven't tested it though. Always test your preps, always test your plans. But they will talk about a bug out bag, they will talk about an inch bag, INCH, which is I'm never coming home. Now, a difference for me between a bug out bag and an inch bag is documents, is digital backups on a USB stick of all the stuff you might potentially need, driving licenses, home insurance, etc., in case you are coming home. But it's all about reading that situation. If it is the complete end of the world, if we have a zombie uprising, the chances of you needing your house insurance document, probably slim. Then we have, of course, the survivalists and the bushcrafters and the wild campers. These are the full-on Rambo Bear Grylls. I can go out there with just a knife and a ferro rod and survive and thrive off the land. And many people claim to be able to do it. Very few actually do it. But the ones that do, my hat goes off to them. Being a prepper, is more about not having to do that. It's about having them comforts that you have day to day. It's about all the power going off and you still being able to have a hot meal, have something for entertainment, and sleep warm in your bed that night, while half the country is panicking that all the power's off. Now let's talk about the real Rambos, the lone wolves. Now lone wolves are basically a prepper or a survivalist who is, their entire plan is centered around them. They are the be all and end all, nobody else involved, don't talk about prepping, it's a secret society, and all of the above. However, it's not a good tactic. Some people are forced into it, not by choice, they just don't have that kind of community around them, or they're in such a remote place that they can't build that kind of community. But if you think of what situation it is and play that out in your mind as a solo person, you have to sleep. You have to, you're a human. You have needs of food, waste, and sleep. So who's got your back during them times? We found within our community that prepping communities are key. And that's why we've broke up the UK Prepper Network into different zones, and zones can have their own meetings. And if the worst could possibly happen, you might not be able to get a massive group of people that are all preppers together, but you might now know that John from down the road is also a prepper and he's not far from you, and you've got a nice little team up link there. So building a mag, building a community is quite key for future survival and longevity of survival. And the last point on this, because this is just a very short introduction to get you thinking about it more, is skills over stuff. Okay, it's about trying the things. Don't have a 30-mile bug out plan and you can't walk more than 2. Make that 1 with a fully loaded bag. Make sure your plan's realistic, make sure you can execute it, and make sure you train for it. Skills as well are a lot easier to pick up and learn within communities. And having all the bits and bats to start a fire and cook a meal is great. But if you've never started a fire, out in the wild, or in wet conditions, or in snowy conditions, and you never cooked a hot meal in the same sort of conditions, it's going to be a very steep, possibly deadly learning curve. Skills over stuff all day long for me. If you buy a new item as a prepper, for example, a dehydrator, or if you're really flush, a freeze dryer, don't just buy it and think I've got it. You need to be using it on the regular, testing it, trying it. Test it if the power goes out. Can you use it with a power bank? How much power does it take? All of these things you want to learn now while you've got the option of going, that was wrong, I should try this. And that's what my channel's been focused on, and that's what a lot of our fireside chats on a Sunday are focused on as well. It's about trying things and getting things wrong. Prepping on a budget is a massive subject for a lot of people, because you will have preppers that have enough money to build a small fleet of vehicles and have a bunker and do all the other stuff. But you might get preppers similar to me that are living day by day, paycheck to paycheck. So finding skills and ways to forage and ways to trap and things like that are going to be a much more vital skill compared to the amount of stuff and things you'll be able to stock and accumulate. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. If you're not a prepper, my question to you is why not? Followed by the biggest question that everyone should ask. What if? Thanks for watching, guys. We've got a great community on this channel. If you have any questions, please pop them below. Even if I don't answer them, somebody will. All helpful advice. So get involved with the community, especially if you're brand new to prepping. Thanks for watching another video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.